All right, 717, just a couple of questions for this week. First of all, there was a question about Nebuchadnezzar and the inscription related to the Tower of Babel. So Tower of Babel dating from around 2200 BC, and then Nebuchadnezzar from around 600 BC. So you've got about a 1400-year lapse in time. And there's the Borsippa inscription, B-O-R-S-I-P-P-A, Borsippa inscription, is attributed to Nebuchadnezzar. It dates from around 600 BC, where he describes the tower, the ziggurat there in that region, that wasn't completed during their time because there was a mass confusion of languages, which is very interesting that Nebuchadnezzar would record this, especially given that he's from a region that wouldn't have had access to biblical material. So that's clear there was a long-term kind of tradition or culture that there's something happened around 2300, 2200 BC in that region involving the ziggurat there at Ur of the Chaldees, or in that region. So anyway, yeah, that's called the Borsippa inscription, and you can look it up. There's several Nebuchadnezzar artifacts that are quite interesting, and also Nabonidus inscriptions from that region and that time. And then beyond that, you have some from Cyrus the Great and others like that. And so there's a great deal of archaeological evidence of the book of Daniel, the kings and rulers from that time period, and inscriptions from that time period that seem to verify some of the biblical events. So it's a very interesting study. Medo-Persian history, Neo-Babylonian history from Nebuchadnezzar. And so anyway, so the Borsippa inscription, but there are others like it. If you look up Nebuchadnezzar, there's the cylinder of Nebuchadnezzar, there's the cylinder of Nabonidus. Things like that, I think, are very interesting, and you can find them very easily in the current web environment. So do a search on those. B-O-R-S-I-P-P-A, though, is easy search. Second question is, how do I love God with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength? Heart, mind, soul, and strength, or how do I love God with all that I am? And the answer, I think, has to do with all aspects of those things being engaged in loving God. So how do I love God with all my body? The answer is we walk in holiness. We don't use our bodies for things that would dishonor Him. So don't use your hand to punch someone. Use your hand to comfort people. Also, treating your body in a way that if you can, stay in relatively good physical shape. I think that's a good way to love God as well, so that you're able to use your body to the maximum ability to honor Him with your body. So not obsessed with, being the most fit person on the planet because you want to look, you want to look buff or something, but instead being in good shape enough to really serve God. I remember I was really convicted by this a number of years ago. I was in Mexico teaching at a pastors' conference in Huasteca. And it was a metal tin roof building, and it was 107 degrees, and I literally almost suffered from heat stroke. It was really hard to teach 6 hours in that kind of heat. But I remember at the time thinking, I did not get myself in sufficient shape for that particular trip. And so because of that, I wasn't honoring God or loving God with my body because I wasn't prepared for that. So that's one thing, your body. Mind. Well, what you fill your mind with. You can fill your mind with things that are detrimental to loving God, things that are maybe greedy in nature or sexual in nature, or maybe themes that are angry or hate-filled, or themes that are just philosophically antithetical to Christianity. So the way we love God with our mind is, first of all, like with our bodies, we jettison things with our bodies that would be harmful, like punching somebody, and we do things with our body that would be good, like showing comfort or going somewhere to minister to someone physically. The same is true with our mind. The way we love God with our mind is that we jettison things that are not helpful to that love relationship, and we fill our minds with things that are. His Word, thinking about how to serve Him, thinking about Him. So that involves the mind. The heart, soul, will, these things are really all the spirit, these things are really all the same. There are really only 3 identified in the Old Testament and 3 in Matthew's gospel. Luke adds a 4th because in Roman world, they did separate heart and mind, heart and soul for one another. So Luke adds that into his section of scripture there just to make sure that the Greco-Roman world would capture the Jewish intent and the original intent of Jesus' words. But we would think about the will, the mind, the soul, the emotions, all of the aspects of decision making, all the aspects of affection, like things we love with our heart. And obviously there's a close association between the body, the mind, and the soul or the will or the affections of the heart. But this is an issue of affection. Like what do I long for? What does my heart long for? And again, jettisoning things that are, getting rid of things that are not helpful for the affection of the heart. Like I love this television show that clearly has ideas that are antithetical to God, or I love this website that's clearly antithetical to the scripture. The flip side of that is to love, have our affections stirred with the love of God, the love of his people, the love for his word, to have our wills, our souls engaged in loving God with how we feel and the way we express our feelings towards him, like in praise and worship. So to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and your body might be a good way to express that as you're at a worship service and you're focused your mind on God and you're contemplating him. You have your heart stirred to worship him. You may raise your hands in worship or raise your voice in sound. These are ways to give expression to loving God with all that we are. And so the way we do that is to love God with all that you are is to delineate between those aspects of our life, physical, mental, emotional, those aspects of our life, and loving God by getting rid of things that are detrimental to our love life toward him and embracing things that are encouraging that. Let's put it this way. If a parent loves their child, there's physical aspects of that love. Well, they may hold them or give them a kiss on the forehead, good night. They may read to them because they want their child to grow in their knowledge. They may teach them how to read, how to do math. They may help them with their homework. That's a loving thing to do. They may also emotionally express these things by telling the child, I love you, or telling the child, that was really good what you did in this area or that. And so there are ways that we know how to love one another in these 3 realms. And so then the issue is to do that toward God, to use our bodies, our minds, and our emotions to love him. All right, we will see you guys on Sunday night at 7:17.